BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for a bookish update. So, first of all, I did start reading Native Son, but I'm just not feeling it right now. I'm still debating if I want to keep going with it. And I mean, I might still continue with it and read it some other time, but it's just not a good timing right now, and I'll explain why later. But yeah, so I might be doing that permanently, or it might just be a softie enough where I might come back to it. I decided to come back to The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, which I'm almost done with it. I have a lot of books that I'm in the middle of reading that I've stopped, and most of them are books that are this size or bigger. And this is a bit of a mystery book, but it's not fast paced like a thriller. It's a lot more slow, and there's a lot more discussion scenes because it's talking about God and the church, and it's a lot of church politics that I don't know, I have trouble following. Like, some of the stuff I don't understand, like some of the conversations. Like, there was a kind of the equivalent to a trial scene where and I just didn't I got the message of the guy was being accused of committing sin and worshiping the devil, basically, and he mentions he starts chanting all these devil figures, and so I mean, I got the basic gist of what's going on, but some of the church politics, I don't know anything about the middle rights. I think that's how you say it, or any of that stuff. I do have a couple books like Stripping the Altars, a nonfiction about religion and religious politics, I believe, or no, actually, I think it's more like a religious text or something, like one of those religion conspiracies. But I'm still enjoying the book. It's just there are aspects of it that I'm very confused. And I think if people knew more about, if I knew a lot more about that stuff, like that history, and also it would kind of be nice if I knew how to read the Latin. But I think that's a very hard language to understand or to study, like even harder than some of the other ones, like French or German or Italian. I always get Latin and Italian mixed up. Every time I'm thinking of Latin and Italian, I say Latin, or vice versa. But I'm still, like I said, I'm still very engaged with the story. I still want to know what this, I love stories that focus on religion and the conspiracy theories, and there's a secret book that might expose some aspects of religion. Like, I read one last year that was in the vein of Dan Brown type story, and I cannot remember for the life of me what the book is called, but it had that type of story where there was this religious group was threatened to be exposed by this one particular monk who found out some information and was going to betray them. So that I enjoyed. That story was really cool, but I did not continue with the story. I did because it is a series. But this is a very different approach to that, where, like I said, it's a lot slower, it's not as fast paced, and it's in the present day, the present time of, when old, much older time period in history. It's like the 1300s. So I do think even if you don't know anything about religious politics like me, you could still enjoy this and have a good time. I do have another book by, I don't know if it's, I think it's somewhere by my shelf. Volcott's Pendulum, by Umberto Eco. I decided to buy it. And I'm hoping to read that at some point. And right now, because it's new and I just bought it a few days ago, I'm all, I want to read it right now. That's every time I get new books, not always, but most of the time whenever I get new books, I also want to read that now. But I have so many books on my shelf that are not new that I've had for years and I need to read. And I have books like this where I started to read it, but then I never finished it. So I'm trying to finish this before the end of the month, but I only have 2 more days left. And I still got a good chunk to read, so this might be the book I'll take into June, just starting my June reading month. I am on part 6, and that might be the last part. Anyway, so there, I'm currently reading that. I have not picked up Swan's Way lately. I haven't picked that one up, but I do want to get back to it soon. And then and I did start reading Marco Polo Travels, but it's kind of boring. You know, there's a lot of him explaining the different cultures, and I feel like, and yeah, that potentially could be really cool and interesting to read about, but the way it's done, the way it's executed, the way he tells it, it's, you know, it's very, as some reviewer said, because I did look at reviews, every time a book starts to kind of bore me, or I'm unsure if I want to continue or not, you know, I look at Goodreads reviews and I will read them, not just look at the rating. And a lot of them said, you know, things I've noticed too, that there's a lot of repetition. There's like certain phrases Polo will say that, you know, to, you know, lead into the explanation. And right now there's a lot of the cultures supposedly are described as very similar to each other. So it's not the most, and of course the chapters are super long, which I was hoping was not the case. So I don't know if I want to keep going. I mean, it's not like one of those books that I absolutely have to, that I feel like I should read. Like, it's not a book that I feel like is important to our society today, where I feel like it's an important, you know, thing to understand. It's one of those, like, niche topics, I feel like. But I was going, this June, I was kind of trying to go for a traveling month, a month of, you know, going, exploring the world, traveling the high seas and stuff, that kind of thing. Which, another book I'm planning to read, I'm thinking about reading English Passengers, which is centuries later, is set in the 1800s, and a group of people are traveling together, and there's, like, I think secrets between these people or something. I don't want, but, and it was actually, oh, I forgot to look, it was a Man Booker finalist. And I don't know, I wonder what that white bread book means. So that's kind of kind of the same vein, an adventure story, like traveling. And then also I was thinking about reading, for my next Filipino literature book, I was going to go ahead and pick up this one, Vihara, which is this, let me look. Let's see. He's an American captain. Oh, no, Salvador Del Raza he's the orphan, and he is taken in by a captain. And they go on a voyage from the Philippines to China, I think. I don't know. But yeah, it's another traveling, seafaring adventure story. So, because what I want to do in July, since it's Jane Austen July, and I'm hoping we are going to go to England in September, I was thinking, why don't I, instead of just doing Jane Austen July, I'll do kind of a England July, where I read literature that takes place in England. I thought that would be kind of fun. So I wanted to do this other theme of adventure and traveling in June, since I was going to do the other theme in July. And then August would be kind of my American literature in August. Now, of course, in September, if we go to England, if we are able to take our trip to England, then I will be using my Kindle instead of bringing books with me. But I'm going to buy some books while I'm there because I am hoping to go to Waterstones. So that's how that's how it's going right now. And so, of course, I bought some books. I already did my haul. I'm showing you my recent books from the roast office the other day. I think I did film a video for that, but I bought a book today. From the Country Bookshop, which I don't know if that's gone over my budget or not. I stopped paying attention to that. First, before I show you the book, let me see if I can find the bookmark. I haven't opened it yet, but I do have a bookmark. I did buy another bookmark. I can't adult today, which right now I have been feeling that lately. Which again, I will talk about why later. It has to do with the same reason why I was struggling reading Native Son. But yeah, I had to go back to work for 3 days in a row, starting on last Monday or last Sunday. I had to go back, and I did not want to go back. It is so hard when the only problem with me being off work for 3 days in a row or 4 days on a rare occasion is that it's so hard to go when you have to go back to work. But then at the same time, only be off for one day, which today I was off, but I have to go back to work the worst day to go back, which is Thursday, because it's our senior day, so it's going to be it's the busiest day on a regular basis. It's kind of a tease because you get the whole day off, and it's not like, and I don't have a car or anything, so I don't drive anywhere, and I have to wait on other people, and then of course, we have Murphy, so I'm babysitting Murphy, and that's as much as I love Murphy, that can be a little stressful, because he is crazy and mischievous, and, he's like a baby. He's but I love him. I love Murphy. I don't mind baby, and I do love babysitting. Sometimes it can be very stressful and exhausting. I mean, not as exhausted as my mom was when she was. But anyway, so, I feel like going back to work is adulting. And I just don't always feel like I don't want to go back to work after being off for a few days, but I also don't want to go back if I'm off for, multiple, even it's just a day, because it feels like it's not enough to really have a vacation. But, at the same time, I was off for several days because we were visiting my sister. So it's okay. But yeah, I thought this bookmark is perfect because there's so many times that me, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel this way too, I can't adult today. I don't want to, it's like you rather watch your favorite show or watch, read your favorite book or hang out with your friends instead of, that might not always be your coworkers and just. But anyway, I really thought this was cute. Okay, so now let's actually show you the book. Oh, I do. Actually, I do have the Marco Polo book. So, in case you don't know, in case you're interested, this is the Marco Polo book, the Penguin edition, which is really pretty. I always like the image of, with the canals and all the canals and the city of Italy being on an island and everything. I always thought that was, for some reason, I associate that with summer because it's an island, it's on water, and I did also attempt to start reading Return to Ship of Magic, but I brought it with me to work, so I only got to read a couple pages because I was reading during my break. But here's the book I ended up buying. Yep, I'm back on the vampire train. I mean, although I was already kind of getting back onto it because I earlier this year I started my reread of Interview with a Vampire. Now I have not got back to I haven't read the second book, The Vampire Lestat, but I want to read it. And I would love to get back to the show, but I need to get back to where I need to be able to where I can rewatch season 1 somewhere, like on Max or Netflix or something. Because I stopped watching season. I kept forgetting to watch season 1 at some point. But anyway, this is Empire of the Vampire, which I think these are so cool. Let me make sure this, yep, it says book one. And Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, I believe he was the one that read this and did a review on it, and he's recently got a special edition. He also read the second book, or he's getting ready to read the second book. I cannot remember. But I remember hearing about this book, and the premise sounded really intriguing. The whole idea of the vampires taking over and having like their own courts and kingdoms and such. And like I'm not the biggest fan of vampire stories where they're just animals and just like they don't have intelligence and they're completely inhuman. Like, I like the vampires that on the surface they come off as very human-like. Like with Anne Rice's vampires, where they can charm, they're very intelligent and they can still act like humans, but then they have that feralness to them. I prefer that over, the more ones that are like actually like animals, where they don't think, they just attack. And there's that one movie, Days of Night or something it's called, where these people are in, I think, Alaska, and it's during that time period where it's the longest and longest night of the year. Like it's a the sun doesn't come up for several days. And so they have to worry about vampires and everything, like, attacking, and that's what. And also, there's that one that Isaac Asimov wrote the book. Or, no, I'm thinking of I Am Legend, and that might not be him, where they did a vampire thing. Like, I just prefer when vampires still kind of have that humanness to them, but they're not humane, but they can act like they're human. Like, Salem's Lot is a really good, where they're still vicious monsters, but there's moments when they do act kind of like they come off as human to lure you in, but then they'll, attack. Like, to this day, that whole scene in Salem's Lot, when the main vampire goes after a certain character, that you would think, oh my god, they are becoming slaves to the devil and everything. Like, the priest, I'm just gonna spoil, when he goes after the priest, that scene still has stuck with me because it's so disturbing and terrifying that he killed a priest. He converted a priest to the devil. Like, you actually saw him being forced to drink the blood of the vampire. And that scene where he's where he's like cuts his wrist and has him, whoever, and forces him to drink his blood, is like, who feeds you is your master now. And of course, when I picture it, when I was rereading for the first time, reading the book, I was picturing Rutger Hauer as Barlow and James Cromwell as the priest, as the Father Callahan. And that scene, where he's making him drink, he's standing there above, looming over Callahan, and Callahan's on his knees drinking his blood, and just that scene that scene just disturbs me and stays with me, and it's so terrifying that a man of God got turned into, a servant of a vampire. But anyway, so yeah, I kept, it was one of these things where I kept thinking about it, and I was debating if I wanted to get in. So I was like, I want to go to the bookstore, today. And I mean, it was like, it's almost the end of the month, so I figured, I'll just go. I might not necessarily be over budget yet, even buying this book. And I hadn't bought a fantasy book in a while. Like, at the roast office, my fantasy book options aren't as big as Books A Million or this independent bookstore, the Country Bookshop. So whenever I go to the roast office, I don't get my fantasy books. I just get a lot of classics, or just, literary fiction or something, or just general fiction. Occasionally I'll get like a fantasy book, but in most cases it's general, like fiction, regular fiction or something. And so I kept going back and forth. It's like, this is how my mental process is when I go to like the bookstore. Like if I go to the roast office, or when the Black Castle Books was still around, I could be, I could try. I felt more comfortable trying new things and kind of browsing, because there was no guarantee if I had a book in mind that it would be there. That's what Steve Donahue always says, when that's one of his number one rule. He suggests when going to the Brattle Bookshop, if you ever got the opportunity, don't go there with expectations. Don't go there assuming that you're going to find a specific book. And I think that's with a lot of used bookstores. There's no guarantee you're going to find a particular book, especially if it's a new book, because they don't necessarily get the bestsellers, because they're getting used books. So if a person has just bought a bestseller, like a new book, and they decide it's not the book for them, or I enjoyed it but I don't need to keep it, then yeah, the used bookstore might get it. But there's not, it's not always the case. So I ended up I usually just browse, and that's why I've been getting a lot of classics from Black Castle, or from Black Castle too, but Black Castle's gone now. It sadly, wasn't doing well business-wise. But when I go to the roast office, I'll get classics, or, historical fiction books, or just regular fiction or something. I will get those books from there. When I go to Books A Million or the Country Bookshop, then I am more prone to get more, obviously new books. And now I won't always get the ones that just get like the new releases, because unless they're out on paperback, I'm always waiting for a paperback, because hardbacks are obviously more expensive, because it takes more to make a hardback, with the cover design and the dust jacket and all that. So and also they physically take up more space because they have the extra, encasing around them. So I try to avoid that, and if I get a hardback book, it's going to be one of the shorter books. But some of my Stephen King books are still hardbacks. Anyway, so when I go there, I am more prone to get sometimes some classics and fiction books, but I will be more prone to get one of my fantasy books at Books A Million or the Country Bookshop. So I was trying to decide between this one fiction book that was this woman from, I think she's from China. I do not remember what country she was visiting. Maybe the Middle East or somewhere, and she is an actress, and it sounded like an intriguing premise. So at first I was thinking about getting that book, but then I kept looking around, and I was gonna think about getting the second book, the third book, the Dandelion Dynasty. But I was like, well, let me read the first two books, and then I'll decide about getting the third one. I mean, most likely I'll enjoy the first two, and I will get the third one. But I do have the third one on my Amazon wish list, so. Or I can always order it off the books. But then I was feeling like, I haven't got a fantasy book in a while, but I also wanted to get a new. So when I go to the Country Bookshop or Books A Million, more so the Country Bookshop, I go there wanting to, I'm either in the mood to get the next book in a series, or sometimes in the mood to get something new to me, but it's something that I've been wanting to read or been intrigued by, and in this case, something I've been wanting to read / intrigued by it. And I can't decide, do I get another book in one of my series? I want to have, be able to go into the next book easily, transition to the next book, or do I get something new that I've been excited to read, but it's it's not part of a series, or it's the first book in a series, or it's new to me, I haven't read it yet. So I decided to go with that route of getting a book that I've been intrigued by, and that is part of a first book in a series. And the series is not, granted, it might be a duology, I don't know, I have to look that up. or if any of you are familiar with it, maybe you can tell me if it's going to be a duology or a series or a trilogy. But I decided to get this instead. And it's kind of like not 100% new, but for the longest time they were doing the romanticized view of vampires, where they're the romantic lead, the dark brooding hero, that our heroine, who's immortal, falls in love with the vampire, but he's, a dangerous monster and he could kill her, and that's the moral dilemma. Like a lot of basically Twilight-esque books, which, funnily enough, while we were there, I'm paying for a vampire book. Well, the cashier was wearing a Twilight hoodie, and so we just started talking about Twilight, because we both still kind of like Twilight, but neither one of us was really Twihards, those obsessive people. We just really enjoyed it at the time, and so we were just kind of talking about it. And she really likes the movies. The movies were more enjoyable than the books. Later on, at least that's her opinion on it. And, we talk about how some of the concepts of Stephenie Meyer, like Jacob Renesmee was really a bit weird. Like, we kind of understood what she was trying to do with that, but it was just weird how she went about it. It was just really, like, it's like, okay, you're really gonna go there. Like, do you realize how that looks, and how like, inappropriate that is? And then also, the whole, but we also both thought the whole vampires having all these different powers was really cool. But it was kind of fun to talk to someone that wasn't a Twilight hater, but wasn't necessarily like obsessed with Twilight. I mean, I don't mean that in an insulting way. If you're a huge fan of Twilight still, and you just love it, and you're very passionate about it, I'm not trying to, I don't mean that in a negative way, saying obsessed. But there are, I know when we're fans of something, like, really hardcore, we can get a little crazy. We can get a little kooky about it. But anyway, so I got that in. Oh my god, though, this guy, like, looking at the cover, this guy looks like one of those, in a paranormal romance novel. This, if you can see the guy in the cover, looks like someone from a paranormal romance novel. But I'll have to show this to my friend, because I know my friend Terry is a big vampire fan. Again, that's another thing I've noticed. Like, that's another thing that I find kind of funny, is that, Terry is a Lord of the Rings fan and a vampire fan. And way back when, way before Terry was my friend, I had two friends. My friend Jessica was a big vampire fan. Like, she loved Lestat and the actor who played him in Queen of the Damned. She had a crush on him. And then, I had Christina, who was a Lord of the Rings fan. And it's just, like, both of them, I was like, oh, I like him too, but I wasn't like, oh my god, I love this, this is the best thing ever. Like, I was just a regular fan that was like, oh, this was cool, but not, And years later, I have another friend is a fan of both. So, but I feel like those types of stories are very popular and very appealing to people. It's escapism. It's kind of fun and crazy, and it's not as, like, I jokingly was, talking to Terry, texting her and be like, oh, back to the real world, it's so boring. Which brings me to the reason why I just couldn't get in. Part of the reason why I couldn't get into Native Son was because I have Bridgerton on the brain. I've watched season 3 twice in a row. Part 1, I should say, because part 2 has not happened, sadly. I'm just get so frustrated. I keep watching all these videos about it, watching people, do where they watch it and they provide commentary while they're watching it. And, this one channel, Sammy Bates, I think is her name, she does, she will analyze it and talk about it, and talk about her theories and everything. Like, she did a video where she analyzed Colin and Penn's relationship from season 1 onward, and I really love her channel. And there's another person I watch, but I cannot remember her name. It's another that does a really good discussion on it. And I also like watching the Pink podcast. They are getting ready to, they are watching, they recorded themselves watching episode 1 of season 3 and episode 2. Which I'm kind of waiting for them to do all 4 episodes of part 1 and just binge watch them. Because I prefer that. Because I always am like, I wonder what they're going to think of the next part, the next episode. So I rather wait until they upload all of them so I can just binge watch all of them. But I am so anxious for part 2. And I'm very nervous. Like, I kind of, I admit, I kind of roll my eyes when people, are still upset about them making it into 2 parts. But on the other hand, I kind of get it. And I also get even though I also roll my eyes when the people like, I can't wait, which I don't begrudge if you feel like, if you're like, oh my god, I'm so excited, I can't wait, like, and are frustrated. That's like, I'm not trying to say I'm begrudging anyone for feeling that way, because ironically, I'm very anxious and I can't wait. So it's really hypocritical of me to get, roll my eyes at people for saying, when they say comments like they're just so annoyed with Netflix for making them wait so long, because like, when it's like a year or 2, I'm okay with that, because then I eventually get into other stuff and think about other things. But when there's not as much time to wait, like I think someone said it's like 20 weeks between, because it's in the middle of June. And so it gives me more time I can't distract myself as easily with other stuff, because there's like not as much time in between, but there's still time. It's still a while to wait. It's like when it's November and you're waiting for Christmas, and like it's almost the end of November going to December, but Christmas isn't in the middle of December, middle towards the end of December. So it's like you're so anxious and so excited. You have that feeling that little kids used to have, knowing that their presents, wanting to know what their presents are, but at the same time not wanting to know, or at least that's how I was as a kid. I'm still in that way. Because my dad, when I remember my mom, my dad, when we were real little, used to always tell me, well, once you open all your presents, it's all over, it's done. So now I have that drilled in my head, ingrained in my mind, that I like the idea of waiting, because once it gets here, the excitement is done. Once you have that moment comes, or you have that thing you're waiting for in the mail, then once you have it, it's no more reason to be anxious and excited, and no more of the thrill of knowing something's coming or you're gonna get something. So I am anxiously waiting for part 2 of season, and I'm loving Colin and Penn as a couple, and now I can't decide who I like more, because I keep saying that I think Daphne and Simon were so adorable. I did really enjoy them. But I love Anthony and Paulin, and I can't now. They're like tied for first place in my which couples I prefer now. I don't know what's going to happen with Benedict and Eloise and their stories, and Francesca, and I also love Francesca and Lord John. They are so cute. And what's great is that a lot of people are starting to, there's a lot of hints in this season that Francesca's autistic. I mean, or at least we're interpreting that. That's how it's been interpreted as. So it's like, yes, we get to see that kind of rep. And it's and even if she's not autistic, just, they're very different compared to the other, they're less, vocal about their passions, and they're more subtle and just cute and sweet and like so adorable. Like there's this whole scene when he comes to call on her for the first time. Well, when they first meet, she's like, she's like, I need to get out of here, I need some fresh air, I need some quiet, because she's big on, she loves her family, but she prefers the quiet and being by herself, which I can relate to that. And so, like, she's just feeling overwhelmed because all these suitors are interrogating her, and, like, this one person that the queen has set up for her, like, oh, I want to have 8 kids, and she's like, I don't want that many. And she's just checking out she's ignoring, and just, she feels so overwhelmed. And then she's like, I need to get some fresh air. She steps out, and there's this other guy, Lord, you know, Lord Earl of Kilmartin shows up, and he also wants the quiet and likes and is perfectly content with that. And they just sit there in silence or stand, and it's so cute. And the looks that they give each other, kind of like that secret smile of, ooh, I like you. And then later, I think it's the next episode, he decides to come and calls on her, and it's so cute because they're just sitting there on the couch, and she's just so, you can see her light up and her smile and everything when he shows up, because her mom's thinking, oh, Lord Sadami, and it's John, and it's so cute. They're just sitting there, and the rest of her family that's in the room at the time is like, how can they, you know, like, they're not even talking, like, they're just so fascinated by the fact that they're just sitting there not talking. And it's so sweet. It's so cute. And then what he does for her later. But anyway, like, but oh my god, this season is chef's kiss. You know, so great. And I'm just so eager because we still got the whole Lady Whistledown thing. And we gotta see how, because you know the season is gonna end happy. Because so far they're all about happy endings, and every season has ended where they resolve the conflict of the romance, and it's happy. Everyone gets that happily ever after. So we know it's gonna happen. It's just this one is a little more crazy and chaotic because, you know, our Pen is Lady Whistledown, and Eloise knows that. And by the end of season 2, and this is ruining their friendship, and it might ruin her relationship with Colin, which she has been waiting for that relationship to happen, for him to see her in that way, and it's finally happened, and it's potentially gonna be ruined. So I want to know how all is going to be executed in season 3, because I mean, I've gotten recaps of the book, but it sounds like it does differentiate from the book on certain aspects, the main plot, and then also seeing everyone's reaction, because everyone is constantly telling Pen that, you know, making her feel bad for her being herself, and everyone is like, you know, reminding them that, you know, that Pen and Colin they're just friends. They will never be any more than that. Everyone's constantly like, you know, and her family teases her about it. It's like, oh, please, he's never going to see you that way, and why would anyone want you? And not only does she finally get Colin, but there's another guy who had liked her, Lord Bellamy, who he is so nice and so sweet and kind, and he's handsome, and he's really nice to her, and I like that he has his own, like, interesting hobbies. I think that's really cool that he has his hobbies, like, he's interested in the world, you know, nature and animals, and I think that's really sweet about him, and so I think that's really, really cool, and I do really like him. But of course, I'm all about Colin, and that was just, and so it was but it was kind of nice to see someone actually being interested in her. He liked her for her. He liked her. He found her honesty refreshing. She actually could be comfortable around him just as she's comfortable around Colin. She could, you know, she still kind of felt like she had to impress him, but then in the end she realized, okay, I actually am not, I don't have the same interest as you. I don't like the same kind of things you do. And he was like, you know what, I don't want someone who likes everything that I like. I want something that's different than me. He really appreciated that, and about her, and he appreciated that she was well read, which is funny because the scene when Portia realizes, oh, he's a potential suitor for her, and they might get married, all, like, the whole idea of her being, you know, they meet at there's this public function going on, and they're at a library, and Pen's ready to read this book that's on nature and everything, and because she's actually intrigued, and her mom shows up. It's like, what are you doing? Like, close that book. You should not be, you know, you shouldn't show you're smart. You shouldn't show that you like to read, because he won't like that. He wants to have to explain things to you. And then just as he approaches, he's like, oh, are you reading that book? And just as she's about to, like, talk to him and be like, yes, and talk what she finds interesting about it, her mom's like, oh, it's so confusing for her. And I'm just like, Portia, not every guy not every guy is gonna be like that, or at least he's not like that. So but I am just so excited to see the reaction of them when they find out that Penn is finally on Colin's arm, that they're finally together and they're in love and everything. They've worked so, they've come so far, just to, see them together and in love, and just, I was watching Sammy's video on where she looks at, which I love that. I love those people that will look at every detail in the trailer and will pause it so you can see it. I think I am so impressed by YouTubers who do that. Will look at these trailers. New Rockstars does that with the Marvel stuff, so I think that's really cool and, impressive that they can do that. Because I would just have trouble making sure, okay, pause it right at this part. Make sure it's right. I have trouble, finding, when I'm watching a YouTube video and then there's something that I miss and having to rewind and go exactly to that point. I have trouble even with that. So I am pleased and impressed with people who take the time to do that. And so she was doing where she was discussing what we know so far, the teasers and the spoilers, and looking at the teaser trailer. And it was so great that she looked at it and talked about it in the way she talked about just how she talked about how in the trailer Penn and Colin are just so they're tied to the hip to each other. They are so clinging to each other, right? Really up in each other's space. And earlier in the when she was recapping the first episode of season 3 and talking about, made a joke about Colin being needing to step back and give Penn her space, because she likes her space. Colin also likes Penn's space too. It's all the things that she said. Sammy Bates is her name, and her videos are awesome where she talks about the show. So if you are a Bridgerton fan, then you should really check out Sammy Bates' videos where she talks about the show and what's coming up and goes over things, all the teases about the next seasons. But anyway, so I'm gonna shut up about Bridgerton. I hope you guys don't mind me doing that. I hope there are some Bridgerton fans that watch my channel that are subscribed to me. That some of you are fans. If not, I apologize. Anyway, so that is, actually, I didn't even mention why I brought what has to do with Native Son. So because I have Bridgerton on the brain, it was very hard to read Native Son because it's definitely completely different from Bridgerton. It's not as happy, romantic story. It's more tragic in dealing with this very confused, angry person that, has really felt society has done wrong to him, and he can't get a break, can't get a fair treatment. So he's just very bitter. So it's not as, it just doesn't fit what I'm feeling right now when I'm into. Although neither does The Name of the Rose, but it's a little bit better because it's the character in that one is less angry at the world, less disgruntled about it. And also I find as long as I start reading before I start watching Bridgerton videos, all the interviews and rewatching the carriage scene, and just reading first before that happens, then I'm good. Plus I'm almost done. I'm just starting Native Son. I just started it. Which, by the way, to the person who recommended I should start reading Native Son, I hope you're not, disappointed. And like I said, I'm sorry, but there is a possibility I might DNF it completely. But I hope eventually I'll get inspired to read it. But I do want to read it, because either I need to give it back to my sister, or I need to read it and then give it back to her. But as I've said before, she doesn't desperately need it back. She doesn't care. And she's probably only saving it for when her kids are at that age where they might read that book. But anyway, so yeah, I only, rambled about my love for Bridgerton right now because it kind of made it hard for me to read something like Native Son, and why I've decided to, put it on the back burner for now. So I hope you guys are having a good day and enjoying your reading. And I would love to know what you guys are currently reading. And like I said, if you are a fan of Bridgerton, I would, would love to hear about that. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't, and click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified about my latest videos. And I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye!